My name is Corinne Gale, and I'm the author of the book, Saving Kenny. The subject of abuse is part of this story. Kenny lives in a household where he never knows what's going to happen next, and he's always a little bit afraid. I wanted my readers to have a sense of what that is like. Unfortunately, there's a lot of children who live in these kinds of homes, and I hope that my book lets them know that they are not alone. In 1968, there was a lot of political and social upheaval, and I try to include some of that in my book. The civil rights icon, Martin Luther King Jr., and President John Kennedy's brother, Bobby Kennedy, were both assassinated in 1968, and there were violent protests in the street and also nonviolent protests about it. I wrote Saving Kenny after I wrote my book Fearless Freedom, which is a story of the 1963 Civil Rights Campaign in Birmingham, Alabama. Hundreds of children marched against segregation, and they were attacked by police and thrown in jail. I was a girl at the time, and I remember seeing reports on the television of children my age being blasted with fire hoses. In 1968, I was 14 years old, living in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and I was very involved with the social and political actions of the day. The civil rights movement was a struggle for justice and equality led by African Americans. The Black is Beautiful movement celebrated Black people, Black art, Black culture, and Black history. The Black Power movement encouraged Black pride, economic independence, and self-sufficiency. There were no classes on Black history and African history when I was in school, and there weren't that many Black people on television. So the Black is Beautiful and Black Power movements taught me to be proud of myself, to be proud of my skin color, to be proud of my hair, and to be proud of my history. The women's movement, the hippie movement, and the gay movement were also happening during that time. The war in Vietnam was very unpopular, and there were lots and lots of protests against it. The first line of Saving Kenny is, "Get ready to be bored." When you first learn how to write, when you're studying writing, one of the first things that you learn is the importance of the opening line of your book. The first line may be your only opportunity to entice the reader and get them to want to read more. So when your first line says, "Get ready to be bored," it sounds like you're telling your reader that this is going to be a boring book. That's not a very good idea, but that's exactly what I did, because I wanted my reader to get a very good sense of Kenny's voice from the very first line. I hope that from that line you get a sense of his personality. You understand that he doesn't want to go to the opera. And I think that the first line of my book makes the reader want to learn more about Kenny and to find out what happens next. In the book Saving Kenny, Gwen and Kenny rode the rapid transit to and from school. In Roxbury, which is where they lived, they rode the Orange Line. The Orange Line was an elevated train that rode on tracks high above the ground. In 1987, the Orange Line was torn down. I remembered that the Orange Line made this big curve and this big screech when it pulled into Dudley Station. I was trying to remember what it sounded like. So I went on YouTube, and to my surprise, somebody had made a video of the Orange Line. From the front car, you could see everything. So I saw the curve and I heard the screech, and it helped me with my writing. I think it might have been the last train ride before they tore it down. Like Kenny and Gwen, I studied arts at the legendary Fine Arts School, the National Center of Afro-American Arts in Roxbury, Massachusetts. I was also one of a handful of black kids that went to private school. I rode the subway to school. I hung out in Harvard Square. I hung out in the Cambridge Commons, and I belonged to a black student union. Kenny, Gwen, and Vaughn all had something that they were passionate about. When I was their age, I wanted to be a dancer, and that's all I did. I took dance classes after school every day and all during the weekend. Sometimes I would even go to a dance class in the morning, then go to school, then go back to dance classes in the evening. Not everybody has that kind of passion and knows what they want to do with their life at such a young age. But when you do, it sets you apart from the other kids. Well, I was a dancer for a while, but then I got sick with this illness called lupus and I had to quit. At that point, I decided to become an artist, and I had a career as an artist where I taught at a university, and I also had exhibitions in museums and galleries all over the country. Actually, this piece here is one of my works of art. Even when I was making art, I wrote for a hobby. 20 years ago, I started writing seriously, and now here I am. I believe that kids today will see the similarities between the protest movements today and the protest movements in 1968. The Black Panthers had a way of witnessing police brutality in 1968. They had a neighborhood watch program, and when somebody saw that something was happening outside in the street, they had a phone tree and they would call people to notify them, and whoever was closest to the area would go and stand and witness it. They wouldn't cause any trouble, but they would just watch it. Nowadays, the Black Lives Matter movement does the same thing by making videos on their telephone and posting them. So now anybody can witness an injustice and post it on the internet. The activist and former football player Colin Kaepernick protested by taking a knee during the national anthem of his football games, in the same way that track champions Tommy Smith and John Carlos protested with their fists in the air during the 1968 Olympics award ceremony. In 1968, most of the protests were led by college kids and adults. Now, people your age are political activists. You can work to save our environment, protest for social justice, or other important causes. I also think the things that Kenny learns in the art school are very cool. If you are interested in tie-dye, there is a page, a Saving Kenny page, on the website for Charlesbridge Moves, where you can take a class in tie-dye. I also think that the cover of Saving Kenny, the inner cover, which is tie-dye design, is very cool. And also the inside poster of Aida. So I hope you enjoy reading my book, Saving Kenny, as much as I enjoyed writing it.